is one of my favorite.
Anywhere Whittingham and Rising. We just talked about Cam Rising, how dangerous he's a guy, and I think I'm sure Manny Diaz will make sure Abdul Carter's probably spying on him because he is a dual threat guy. He can use his legs to pick up first downs. So definitely gotta know where he is at all times and get pressure on him. Kyle Whittingham. I mean, these guys been there. He took over when Urban Meyer left for Florida, and that was, end of 2004, like 2005 season. So guys like a Utah lifer at this point, and he's been with that program when they were still in, I think it was the Mountain West Conference they were in before they went to the Pac-12.
Correct.
So he's overseen them from being, mid Mountain West, group, non-power program to now into being a P5 school. And they've made a pretty smooth transition into that. He's, real obviously, Utah, doesn't have like maybe the richest of football histories, but he's certainly helped, I think, maybe make the program a little more nationally relevant with the success he's been having in recent years, including this year. And frankly, it was pretty impressive what they did to USC in the Pac-12 championship game. That's a team that they upset at home earlier in the season, and you're thinking, all right, well, USC's got revenge on their minds. They'll probably go take it out on Utah. And ultimately, that's how it was panning out in the beginning. I think it was like 17-3 USC early on or something like that. And then, Utah just kind of collected themselves and just started pasting USC going forward. I mean, it definitely helped that Caleb Williams got hobbled and was ineffective, but man, the way they just exploited USC's defense was a solid coaching job and just good execution from the players they've got there. So this will certainly be a test, and a good test. This will be like, so I remember the last couple, well, especially the 2008 the Rose Bowl in 2008 season. I mean, USC was a favorite for a reason, and it showed. I mean, they just were just a more talented team, and especially that offense was just too much for the Penn State secondary to handle.
Made Mark Sanchez a first-round pick that day. But to this day, Mark Sanchez owes Tom Bradley a lot of money.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth, Marty. I was about to say. And then the one 6 years ago, that was, I mean, USC was a favorite. It maybe wasn't as, it was expected to be a more competitive game, I think. And Penn State, I mean, they fought back. They got down. They were down a couple touchdowns early, but they fought back. And then just that early second half, those barrage of scores. I mean, you had Saquon Barkley's pinball-like touchdown run. We're just like hitting the juke button multiple times. And then on his way to the end zone. And then you had Chris Godwin with the catch that originally was deflected by the USC defender. And then, which took the end zone. And then that was followed by a tipped interception deep in USC's territory, which then turned into another touchdown for Penn State shortly after. So all of a sudden, it's like a 2-touchdown lead for Penn State, and they're in control. But I guess maybe they got a little too conservative or what, but and also the defense wasn't able to really get much of a pass rush on SC at all. So Sam Darnold had probably like 5-6 seconds to throw the ball every time, and you give a quarterback that much time, they're going to find somebody. So, ultimately, they lost that in a last-second field goal. And I happened to be at those last two Rose Bowls, and so suffice it to say, I'm not going to be there this time. So I realize I'm a bad luck charm. So I'll just be watching from the confines of my home, and hopefully they can get their second ever Rose Bowl win, first one since they beat Oregon in the '95 Rose Bowl.
Yeah, you mentioned that 2008 game, and I always felt in 2008 that, USC was the best team in the country that year, in my opinion. How to this day I'll never figure out how they managed to lose twice along the way. But I mean that was just a game that I think the final score was like 38-28, but it was never that competitive. Penn State got some garbage points late, but that 2016 game, man, I mean obviously you want to win, but if you're going to lose, you might as well. That's a hell of a way to do it because that was an instant classic, one of the best Rose Bowls ever. I mean Georgia and Oklahoma the following year may have outdid it, but I mean at least in my lifetime, those two and Vince Young taking down USC are the three greatest Rose Bowls I've ever watched. So even if you lose, if you're going to lose, you might as well do it an instant classic because that game still provided so many great moments. You mentioned Saquon's touchdown run. To me, that is one of the 5 greatest individual efforts I've ever witnessed in a football game. It was just unbelievable. And I think some of it too, it goes to show the specialness and that sort of thing of the Rose Bowl, because that game being played in Pasadena, it really, from Saquon's run, you mentioned the Godwin catch, that interception that Brandon Bell had that I feel like gets forgotten. That may have been the single biggest play of that game because Bell broke his arm on the return and missed the rest of the game. And I don't think Penn State's defense completely implodes down the stretch the way it did if Bell's still out there. There were so many just plays in that game. The winning field goal by USC's, the clock's at 0, that if it's not the Rose Bowl, they don't carry that kind of same prestige and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, that was a hell of a game. Hopefully this year, things are going to go in Penn State's favor. But yeah, the Nittany Lions they set the bar high the first time James Franklin took this team to the Rose Bowl in terms of just watchability. And I can't imagine what it was like watching that game as just a college football fan who was not a Penn State or USC fan, having no dog in the fight. So, hopefully we'll get something similar this year, just this time with the Nittany Lions coming out on top. And, this would be something we'll talk about in the post-game show if they do win. But if they win this thing, I think you've got to start discussing it as probably one of the 3 or 4 best wins James Franklin's had at Penn State. Up there with excuse me, his Big Ten championship, up there with beating Ohio State in 2016. So it would be one of the best wins that he's had. And, if you do win it, it's going to go down as, without a doubt, no matter how it ends, it's going to go down as one of the more memorable games in program history, again, because it is the Rose Bowl, and that does mean something more still.